When I was 14, I planned my wedding.
This One's Wife. Harry Pothead and the 43% Blood Princess. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Dum dum be dum 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 dum. Yes, another Harry Potter analogy, with our Prince of Pink Pancakes taking the titular role of Harry Pothead, but this time joined by the 43% Blood Princess. After all, our living saint is, as she told us, 43% Nigerian, and apparently now she is a Nigerian princess, thus 43% Blood Princess. The relationship between these two people is probably a relationship which has received more column inches than any other in recent broadcast and media history, as a consequence of the fact that Harry is a prince of the realm, and that he then married somewhat unconventionally, i.e. outside of the blue bloods and American divorcee, it attracted a lot of attention. But then that attention was generated by her behaviour and the impact that it had upon him. I was the first to point out that she is a narcissist. I did so by an objective, neutral assessment of the behaviours to identify repeated narcissistic indicators spread over a period of time, and of course, thereafter, her behaviour has simply confirmed what I've already told you. She is a narcissist, and you have been able to observe her behaviours through the prism of her narcissism to help you understand precisely why she behaves as she does. But old Harry Pothead, mind obscured by emotional thinking, not being the sharpest knife in the drawer, and the, we're led to believe, frequent application of recreational pharmaceuticals, finds himself in a fog. But what I wanted to address was, is Harry in the find out phase? Nobody recognises a narcissist the first time that they are ensnared. Nobody does. Part of that is because many people haven't really heard of narcissism, and if they have, they tend to think, oh, it's somebody who's a bit self-involved, isn't it? They're in love with themselves, and do not fully understand what it involves. It's only after ensnarement, and perhaps being told by a kind friend, often a therapist, or their own rooting around on the internet, which leads them to the door of the world of narcissism. If they're fortunate, they come across my work so that they're provided with unrivaled information about what narcissism is, and, furthermore, what they can do to protect themselves. But what about Harry? Well, as you know, he was ensnared as a consequence of her benign manipulations as she drew him in. She seduced him. He, like many victims, didn't see what she was. Even at the early stages, there are those of us who did identify what was going on. Some people saw that there was something wasn't quite right. The engagement interview largely being accepted by many as where a number of red flags were flying. And although they may not have identified that she was a narcissist, they certainly thought that something wasn't right. They thought that something wasn't genuine. They identified that her behaviours left something to be desired. I, of course, had identified at this juncture that she was a narcissist. Nevertheless, Harry, like so many victims, hadn't got a clue. And why would he? He thought that he was dealing with somebody that loved him, that supported him, that understood him, that gave him plenty of spicy poontang. She lets you do what you want. It was all looking good for the Ginger Prince. He'd finally found his Catherine. He then becomes embedded as the intimate partner primary source, and he's still getting the golden period. She's ace. She's great. I'm listening to her. Yes, there are some people who don't like her, but they're just envious haters. I'm going to issue a statement to back off from my girlfriend. Take that, media. Leave her alone, you nasty bunch. And understandably, with his emotional empathy, he sought to defend his new girlfriend. And thereafter the golden period continued, as she embraced royal life to an extent. Occasional fallings out with people, but Harry, very much still under her spell, takes her side, as is always the case, rather than look at it objectively and think, hang on a second, what's going on? Like so many victims, get drawn in by the narcissist and believe the narcissist version of events, and it's only much later that they look back and realise, I got that wrong. I accepted what the narcissist told me. I lost friends, I lost family, I fell out with people, and I now realise that they were right about this person and I wasn't. It is a regret that I've often heard from people. Then, of course, came the sustained devaluation, whereby Harry has found himself subjected to various malign manipulations, peppered with respite periods where everything's all right again. And so far, he remains. Whilst there are rumours that they're separated and don't live together, they still make a number of personal appearances, still talk gushingly about the idyllic marriage, her, when giving a respite period, and therefore it would appear that they are still together, albeit he is in the sustained devaluation, which means that he receives a range of unpleasant behaviours, which I've explained to you in the past. But is Harry in the find-out phase? Indeed, he is. Although we know he's not that clever, and we know that his thought process is affected by emotional thinking, he is not so blinded as to realise that there is something wrong. He will have seen the fact that there have been fallings out with his family. Yes, she will have provided explanations to why that's happened, but he will have noticed that he's no longer close to family members that he once was close with. He will also have felt isolated. He doesn't really have any friends where he now lives. He's lost contact with many of his former army friends, his former school friends, those based in the United Kingdom. He's found himself not invited to the Grosvenor wedding. Accordingly, in the circumstances, he recognises that he's lost people, and he will start to realise that in part this has been caused by his relationship with this one's wife. He also knows that he's on the receiving end of poor behaviour from her. He won't be oblivious to the fact that she shouts and screams at him, throws crockery at his head, possibly has even physically assaulted him, pushing, slapping. He will have been subjected to silent treatments, and he won't understand why. He'll have been subjected to false accusations, which will have confused him. He'll have argued back. But he started to find out, for quite some time now, what it is that he's truly become involved with. I doubt still, notwithstanding the number of times that it has been mentioned, not least by your glorious narrator, that he still doesn't realise that she is a narcissist. I think very much that he will be aware that the accusation has been made that she is one. He'll be aware of that as a consequence of their poring over mainstream media and social media. But he will not have accepted that that is what she is. But he is in the find-out phase, as he's finding out that actually it is nowhere near as good as he once thought it was. This is something that all victims of a narcissist eventually find themselves in, as they start to find out, not necessarily that they're dealing with a narcissist, but that they start to find out that the person that they thought was amazing and wonderful actually isn't. That the person that they thought was the person of their dreams is actually a person of their nightmares. It is a difficult phase to go through, and it always occurs with the sustained devaluation, or, where an individual is a secondary source, through corrective devaluations, but it is more likely felt by an intimate partner primary source who is in the position of being subjected to the sustained devaluation. It doesn't immediately translate into recognition that they're dealing with a narcissist, but what they're finding out is life is not as sweet as they once thought it would be. That all of the things that were wonderful have somehow shifted, that they're isolated, attacked, complained about, put down, invalidated and belittled. And this is where Harry Pothead finds himself. It would not be a surprise as to why he would then be taking refuge on the Gange, because at least then he feels more settled. The anxiety becomes lessened, that he's not having to deal with being accused of something that he hasn't done, of being belittled for things that he hasn't actually occurred. All of this is Harry's find-out phase. that the goddess that he thought that he'd married, that liked all of the things that he liked, that was kind, supportive, wonderful, he's starting to realise she isn't those things at all. He is yet to connect why that is. He's yet to work out why she isn't the wonderful person that he thought she was. But for Harry, he's very much in that find out phase and is experiencing its turbulence. Where it will lead to very much depends upon if he seeks help, if he accepts intervention, if somebody offers that assistance to help him understand why she has shifted in the way that she has. Like many victims, he'll be blaming himself, thinking that he's caused it, or that it is as a consequence of the pressure that she's under as a result of all of the criticism that she receives. Most victims do not immediately equate this shift to the fact that it is narcissism. Invariably, they waste time and end up finding themselves going round and round in circles as they attribute it to something else or someone else as being the problem. Some people never find out. They never realise that they've been ensnared by a narcissist, but many people do as a consequence of going on the internet and asking, why does he blow hot and cold with me, for example? Or going to see a therapist because they're so confused about the relationship. Or even talking about it with friends and family, some of whom might know something about narcissism. But for Harry, no such revelation has yet occurred, and he's in the find-out phase as he realises she is not what I thought she was. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.